Hey guys, and welcome to this episode of the Happy Knitting Podcast. My name is Julia and I'm coming to you from the UK. Today is Thursday, the 16th of May 2024. Can you tell I haven't done this in 3 weeks? I'm recording today on my lunch break because finally I can record again. It's been 3 weeks. I was on holiday for 10-12 days, something like that. And then as soon as I got back, I got a stomach bug, which was horrible. So that completely wiped me out and cancelled any plans of me, recording a nice update of what I've been knitting on my holiday. But here we are, I have recovered mostly. I'm back to drinking coffee. I had my first coffee yesterday in about 5 days, which tells you a lot. But yeah, I'm feeling more energetic and had some time with work, so I decided to give you a little update. So if you're new here, welcome. It is a knitting podcast. I do also crochet. If you're coming back, you'll know all about that. Thank you for coming back. And I will show you my finished objects, works in progress, and I will show you some new yarn as well, because I did buy myself some yarn for my birthday. But because we've been on holiday, I think this could be a bit of a chatty one, but there will be a lot of knitting and crafting and yarn in there, so don't worry. Anyways, let's get started. So I have a couple of finished objects and they're all tiny objects because my friend is expecting her third baby and I am throwing a surprise baby shower for her. And of course I need to present her with a whole box of knitted and crocheted things. So I've shown you in the past the baby blanket that I've made. Basically, I finished an old Battenberg blanket that I had and I was never going to finish. So I'm very happy I now turned it into a baby blanket. And I have been doing some tiny baby knits while we were away. So first up, I made a beloved bonnet, which is a bonnet pattern by Tin Can Knits, which, how cute is that? I remember making these for my son. Actually, I think my friend Marion made him 1 or 2, possibly 2, I'm not sure. And he wore them a lot and I made him a tiny one as well. And they were really versatile and actually fit for a long time. So I made this. All of this is using very old stash yarn. This is a skein of Schepjes Tribe, which is, I think, a sock yarn, but it's a single ply. So I didn't really want to use it for socks. I had this left over after making a blanket, which you may or may not remember. I originally also started a Battenberg blanket out of this yarn, then ripped it out and made a giant granny square, which has since been donated. But yeah, I had one ball left, so I made the baby bonnet, the beloved bonnet. I made the smallest size, and I hope it won't be too small. But my friend has had preemies before, so I think chances are she will have a small baby. And this is so cute. This was so much fun to make. I actually feel like I might just make her a bigger one as time goes on. So I made her that. I held the yarn double, in case I didn't mention that, on 3.25 millimeter needles. I didn't swatch. I think it's fine. So yeah, beloved bonnet. And then I still had yarn left over, so I also made some tiny cute little baby socks. I just love making these. I think I did 24 stitches, again, yarn held double, 3.25 millimeter needles, did some ribbing, did some stockinette, pretty simple. I just did my usual heel, which is what's it called? The shorter heel, that's not the Fish Lips Kiss heel. Anyways, it's a very, I didn't use any sort of specific pattern. I just used my regular sock recipe and just made it tiny, and they're so cute. So yeah, that's what I knit when we were there. And then on the plane back, I was planning to knit another. I wanted to make a bigger version of the beloved bonnet. I was looking forward to making it on the plane all day. It was lots of delays. It was really stupid. So we finally got on the plane. I actually made the I-cord, the first one, to start the bonnet. And then I couldn't find the pattern on my phone, which is really strange because I had it on my phone a week earlier. But my phone had swallowed it up and we were in the air. So I was really annoyed. So I decided I'll just make that baby a little baby sweater because that was my backup plan anyways. So I sort of looked through my phone to see which patterns I had saved that I could access. And I didn't have the flax on there, which is a shame. Again, my phone swallowed it up. I used to have that on there. So I used the Tin Can Knits Strange Brew sweater, which is a top-down recipe for different weights and all of that. You're meant to use it for color work, but I just used it for the numbers. So I knit a top-down sweater, which, how cute is that? I think I knit the yoke on the plain. And then, of course, I had one skein of sock yarn, which was holding double. This is also crazy old stash. I think it's definitely German yarn. Pretty sure it is from Strickoholic. I'm not sure if she still dyes or not. She might well do, but it's on a really nice soft sock yarn. I reckon it must be a merino base. So it's not the sort of slightly coarser German sock yarn. This was quite nice. And of course I ran out of yarn. So I finished this the body. I made the newborn size, divided the yarn for the sleeves, and I ran out. But it turns out I think this blue matches really well. This is some Filcolana Aweta, which I used for a different project, which I'll show you in a second. So I made some quite long sleeves, which again, she can roll back if she has a tiny preemie who needs a sweater. I think this will be quite nice as well. I think it looks quite cute. And then it can just be more of a sweater dress, and then they can grow into it. But I needed something to incorporate the blue, and I think the logical thing to do would have been to unpick the bind off and add some blue at the bottom, but I really didn't want to do that. So I decided to make a pocket. I just knit a square and then stitched it on, which, if you know how much I hate sewing things and I'm really bad at it, this was a labor of love. But how cute is it? I think it actually turned out really, really cute. So I'm very happy with how this turned out, and I'm also happy to have just completely used up a skein from stash without any leftovers. As I always do for baby sweaters, I didn't go down a needle size for the ribbing because babies have big heads and you just want to be able to slip them in the sweater. So I also didn't do any short rows, so they can, put it on either way, it's fine. I feel like baby knits just need to be practical more than anything, and all of these things can be machine washed because they are sock yarns. So yeah, I got this ready for her as well as the blanket, and I think this is what I'll give to her for her baby shower, and then I might make more of these bonnets and socks and stuff because they're really cute. And also I now have another friend who's expecting another baby, so I can knit all the baby knits without actually having to go through like pregnancy and childbirth, which is great. So those are my finished objects for the holiday. I have an almost finished object, which I'll show you as well, but they're not really finished. But I knit a pair of socks. And this is where the blue yarn that I just showed you comes into play. These are socks. I actually knit a sock tube, which means you start at the toe. In my case, I always start with the toe, and I knit an entire tube like this until I ran out of yarn because I only had 50 grams of the self-striping, which is Fab Funky Fibers here in the UK. The colorway is something autumn haze possibly. I got it on a sale a while ago, so I knit a tube, then finished with another toe, and then I counted the stripes and cut the tube into two essentially, and added the ribbing. So now we have two socks, but we don't have any heels yet. I just couldn't be bothered to do that on holiday. So what I might do is actually, because I don't feel like doing them right now and there's no rush, we have sock camp coming up. I don't have anything coming up. The Crazy Sock Lady is hosting summer sock camp, and I'm joining in for sure this year. So you can use that knit along to finish socks as well. So I think I might just put these aside, and then once sock camp starts, I will put in the heels with the Filcolana Aweta that I also used for the sleeves, and finish these socks. They will most likely be for me. So yeah, almost finished object, I would say. And then I knit some more socks on holiday, or I started some more socks. I feel like I didn't get that much knitting done on holiday, I'll be honest. I think partly because the first week my husband was still suffering from the flu, which was really, really annoying. It took us a while to figure out that that's what he had, because Just by chance, my son and I got the jab, but my husband forgot. So yeah, which meant I had less knitting time because I had more kiddo time, but I did get some knitting done. So I started these socks, and I meant to look up the designer and I forgot, sorry. So this is a pattern, it's a German pattern that you can find on a German blog, but even if you don't speak German, it has a chart and it's quite simple. It's just a really fun pattern of sort of knits and purls. It's just a ribbing structure and some garter rib, and it's really fun. I think it looks really fun on a lot of different sock yarns. So I wanted to try it. It's called Sockengerippe. And the yarn that I am using is, again, very old German stash. So this yarn I got at a yarn festival in Munich years and years and years ago. I mean, we've been in the UK for 4 years almost, and there was a pandemic, so at least 5 years old. This yarn, I have the tag off. This is from Involviert, which again, I'm not sure if they're still dyeing. It's on their speckled Fritz number 55 colorway on a high twist superwash merino nylon. And I really like these colors. I think it's very pretty. So yeah, as you can tell, I've just been enjoying knitting up some stash, but this is only the first sock. I was sort of struggling with a bit of tendinitis when we were away, and I feel like this sock sort of contributed because it's a lot of purling and ribbing and all of that. So I haven't knit tons of it. I haven't picked it up since we came back from a holiday, but I think this one is actually ready for the toe. So I should just finish it and get the second one started. And again, summer sock camp is coming, so yeah. Another sock whip. Next up, I also started a shawl. And I started a shawl using my Handspun gradient, which you can't tell from this. But this is Handspun that if you've been following my podcast, you'll have seen this before. It's a woolen spun merino and silk that I spun as a 2-ply a couple of weeks ago, not too long ago. The fiber is from Spin Jones. I've been loving woolen spinning. And hang on, how do I show this to you? Look at this. I have started the Woolsia shawl by Amber O'Brien. I was sort of debating whether to make this into, originally I was going to make a muzzlebrow hat, but then I thought this yarn is so special, I didn't want to just make a hat and the hat wouldn't have used up all the yarn. So I thought about doing a cowl, but it didn't feel like making a cowl, so I've just decided to make this shawl, which is meant for one skein of yarn. This is about a fingering weight. I only have like 90 grams, but I think because this is a very sort of open eyelet pattern, I think it'll be big enough. I'll just block it out, and it's very simple, and I've really enjoyed knitting it. So as you can tell, it's really, really drapey. It starts out in the sort of orangey, pinky, speckly bit, and then it goes into the green, and this is where we're at. And I have this left, and I have another nugget of green somewhere. I just need to find it. So I think it should be enough to get a sort of reasonably sized shawl, and I think it's really pretty. I really, really enjoyed working on this, and yeah, I love the look. I think this is one of Amber's sort of advent patterns. She has a lot of faded patterns, and I could see myself knitting this again, even with handspun. I think it's a good handspun project, and yeah, this is so drapey and soft and lovely. I really, really like it. So I think that's all I knit on holiday. I may be forgetting things. I have sort of lost track of everything a little bit, but that's all I can remember knitting. But then I came back, I was very ill, so I didn't knit for a couple of days. But when I could knit a little bit, I have been knitting on my Faded Undulations wrap or shawl by Stephen West, and I am in the middle of a row, which is not handy. But I'll just show it to you very quickly because look, it is huge. I have really made some progress on this. If you may remember, I am not knitting this to gauge. My gauge is much bigger. I'm just using the pattern because it's a really good pattern to, you can just make it as big as you'd like. And oh my God, this is going to be amazing. I'm really, really excited about this one. I mentioned in the past, I am using a strand of mohair. This is not a silk mohair. I think it's a polyamide mohair, viscose mohair, something like that from Novita. And I'm holding it with a cotton cake. This is Schreepjes again. Do I remember what it's called? Twist, twirl, I think twirl. And the color is Coral Catastrophe, which I think is a hilarious name. And they have lots of really fun names. I want to order a couple of these cakes just because I think the names are funny. And together, as you can tell, it's getting darker still. But you can definitely sort of see the gradient happening. At least you can in real life. Here you can see it. It's going from light to dark. And I think doing something similar, I really like this combination of a cotton and a mohair. I think it actually makes for a really nice drapey fabric. And obviously the mohair softens it a bit in terms of color. So I could see myself knitting a similar shawl, but using a crazier yarn combination where there are cakes where the colors change a lot more. And I think it would be really, really fun. So yeah, I've been knitting a lot on that. I also made a very random Sunburst granny square because I was thinking about starting another blanket using my minis, but I think I want to use these for something else, so I might just rip this one out. And then I started a big project. I'm not sure if I told you about this. I know I've told people about this on Instagram. I have been planning to make a very certain blanket, which I think is called the Retro Stripe blanket by Nautical Crochet. She has beautiful crochet patterns, mostly blanket patterns, I believe, on her blog and Ravelry and such. And a lot of them I think are even free. The one I'm using is free and it looks brilliant. So essentially you make a ton of Sunburst granny squares using this yarn, which is Red Heart Super Saver, which if you're in the US, I think this stuff is very, very cheap. Getting it in the UK wasn't as cheap, but still relatively cheap. And it's funny because this colorful yarn, it comes in smaller cakes than the solid. Don't ask me why, but... So I'm using a Retro Stripe, and this is colorway Erin. And what you do is you make Sunburst squares. So the pattern, I'm using her free pattern on her blog. I think you can also buy it on Ravelry if you want an ad-free version, but it's really, really straightforward. Her instructions are fine. So you make these little circles, which look really wobbly, but I think they will be fine. They're really beautiful. They're really fun to make. Obviously, because the yarn is color changing, you don't need to worry about it. So it's very, very straightforward. I'm using a 5mm crochet hook, and then you turn the circles into squares. And again, my circles and my squares, everything is a bit wobbly, but I have ordered a granny square blocking board, which should arrive today. And then let's see if I can do this. Maybe not. And then I'm going to block these ones out and join them. And you know, this is so much fun. I've made so many of these, and honestly, I haven't been crafting that much. Remember, I was ill. I don't know. These are just coming out so quickly. They're coming out a bit bright on camera just because I think it's a very, very bright yarn. But with the white, if you want to look up the pattern as well, I'll link it below. It looks really, really good once it's all joined together. So essentially all these squares are just going to join, and I love it. I'm obsessed with this. I thought this was going to be a long-term project. I don't think it will be. And I have gotten a lot of squares out of one ball of yarn. I think you're supposed to order 8 of these, and they're like 150 grams. I ordered 6, and all of this, except for one, I've gotten out of one ball skein, whatever you want to call it. So I'm curious how much yarn I will actually need, but this has been bringing me so much joy. And the nice thing about this, compared to other crochet projects and blankets that I've done, is that once you know what you're doing, it's so intuitive. So I don't need to look at the pattern for any of the steps. I can just, smash out a couple of these circles. I can just join a couple of circles. Like, it's very, very simple, but it still looks quite impressive, and I love it. I love it so much. It's not super fiddly. You don't need to worry about, changing yarns or color management or anything like that. I'm just going to join, you know, one sort of green bluish square with next to a pink yellowish square, and that should work. So I'm really, really, really excited about this. Oh, and I did find I have worked on another project. Sorry, I knew I was going to forget something. More socks. Back to socks, back to holiday knitting. I also knit this sock and started the second sock, which you wouldn't be able to tell this is the same colorway, right? This is one of those really, really strange yarns, and I'm not sure if I think it's really pretty or really ugly. I knit my husband Kai a yarn out of the sock out of the same yarn, and I wouldn't say they're pretty. This yarn is Schoppel Wunderklecks. So Schoppel are famous for their Zauberball yarns, which are sort of in a similar shape. They come in these little balls, but they're more sort of barber poled. And this just makes really funny, weird color combinations. I wonder if they dyed as a sock blank or something, and then because the yarn is all crinkly as well, as you can tell. But it's interesting. So I finished the first sock. This one was a vanilla sock, so this was the easiest project on my hands when we were away. So I finished the first sock, started the second one. Again, I just need to work on all these socks, and I haven't really, but there you go, another holiday project. I think this is now really it. I can't see any more projects that I've forgotten to talk about. Obviously, I have a lot going on at the moment on the needles because I have a couple of whips from before we left. I now have come back with 2 more sock whips, and a shawl whip. I haven't touched any of them since we got back, but I'll sort of try to get my whip count down again, and I'm really enjoying knitting up old stash. So yeah, that is the knitting and crocheting that I have been doing. And if you don't like to see stash enhancement, I usually don't show it, but I'm feeling like it today, so I will show it very briefly. If you don't want to see it, skip ahead. If you don't want to listen to holiday waffles or any of that, I'll see you again next week. But I just very briefly wanted to show you 3 pretty skeins just because I think they're pretty. And I bought these with my own money. I'm not sponsored. I'm not getting anything for anything I say on this podcast. And if I ever do, I will mention it. But I have finally placed an order from Felt Fusion again. Because, well, I placed it before my birthday, but I then had a birthday. So I think it is entirely justified. So I think a couple of dyes lately have been getting this base, which it's like a high twist base with neon tweedy neps, which I just think is so fun. So this is what prompted me to order from Shadow of Felt Fusion. I've got yarn from her from years and years ago. I think she was one of the first indie dyers I ever ordered from, even when we were back in Würzburg, which was like 8-9 years ago. So this is I think it's just called Neon Nep Space in the colorway Wednesday, which I think, how cool is that? Like a black and white with the neon speckles. I think this is going to make a really fun sock. I have a feeling my husband would actually like this as well, but I'm not sure if I want to share it. So we'll see who gets socks out of these. And then for, again, ages, I have been wanting to try one of these zebra yarns. I know they've been around for a couple of years, but I've never actually bought a skein. So I rectified that. This is colorway this and that on the zebra base. And I think this will be really fun to knit. And also I love these sort of high twist sock yarns. It feels soft. I love a good 2-ply. And yeah, this one will definitely be for me. And then this one, did I order the wrong base? Yes, I did. Do I always tell you guys I don't like a BFL sock yarn? Did I order it on BFL sock yarn? Yes, I did. And it was entirely my own fault. I'm an idiot. But how pretty is this? This is it's called, I think, Not Quite Advent Speckles 2. So I think she dyes this really special Advent speckle colorway once a year, which has like a million different colors. And this was sort of a leftover skein, which I was very lucky to snag. So I don't know how it differs from the Advent speckles, but I think it's really, really pretty. I like a high twist BFL base. I like a merino sock base. I love the feeling of the socks that I've made from this kind of base, I think a couple of dyers have this base. It's a BFL nylon superwash base. The socks, they wear so well. I just don't enjoy knitting it with it particularly. But this is so pretty. It's going to be a lovely pair of socks anyway. So yeah, I got myself 3 shiny skeins of yarn and I'm really excited by this. I feel like I buy like mini skeins and little things, but generally I haven't bought as much indie dyed yarn in a while. So yeah, I splurged a little bit, which I think was good because I ended up being quite ill on my birthday and it was my first day back at work after 2 weeks off, so that was quite rough. Yeah, anyways, that is the yarn, that is the knitting, the crochet. So if you want to stick around, honestly, I don't have much to tell you. Like I said, we went on holiday to Portugal for, was it the 3rd time? We keep doing the same thing because we finally found a sort of holiday that works with my son that actually sort of leaves us feeling somewhat refreshed rather than just, doing the exact same thing that you do at home with a toddler, just somewhere else. It was absolutely lovely. It was a bit unlucky because Kai wasn't feeling well the first week, but it was still nice. And it would have been much more difficult had he been sick and we'd been at home and I would have had to work and juggle my son and all of the things that have to happen. So in a way it worked out, and then eventually the weather got better, my husband got better, and it was the most lovely holiday. It was really, really great. And then, as I said, we came back and pretty much like 2 hours after we got home, I was ill. And so that was not the weekend of sort of rest and recuperation that I was expecting, but hey ho, here we are. So I've now mostly made it through my first week back. My son's back at nursery. We have a million things coming up, which is insane. I think in the next 5 weeks, we're invited to 5 kids' birthday parties, which can kids stop having birthdays? Because it is really a lot. My family's coming next week. All the events are happening. I just keep canceling things to like desperately try to slow down a little bit and catch up with life. Luckily, the house didn't fall apart while we were away, which, touch wood, it usually does, right? So that's good. We had no mice when we came back. We had no unexpected anything. So that was a nice surprise. The garden is flowering and growing and probably needs some attention, but I don't have the time. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all that's been going on, just sort of trying to juggle everything. And there's a lot of stuff coming up for my son's school as well, because if you're not aware, in the UK, kids start school really, really young when they're 4. So my son will be 4 in late summer and going to school, which is terrifying. And there's a million appointments and things to do and attend and fill in and da-da-da. So yeah, a lot going on. Having said that, I am actually really happy also to be back with my stash. I've been doing some spinning last night. I could barely stop. I enjoyed it so much. I'm really enjoying spinning lately. I feel like I'm in a good knitting and making and creating spirit, which is great. So yeah, all the things, all the knit-alongs, I just want to do all the things. I just need to find the time. So yeah, so that is pretty much everything that has been going on. I am definitely missing a million things, but that's okay. I'm just so happy I got to catch up with you guys. I will be back most likely next weekend. Until then, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope wherever you are in the world that you are healthy and safe and enjoying some lovely yarn. Do feel free to let me know what you are working on. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Happy knitting. Bye.